All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 116 of the On Air Advocate, where at the On Air Advocate, we look to provide education, support, and empowerment for all of those with different abilities, mental and medical illnesses, and their caregivers. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Tammy Flynn, and I am the host and producer of the On Air Advocate, and I am super excited if you are joining us here this evening or whether you are catching this on the replay. Now, as always, if you think any of the content that we are talking about tonight could be relevant or helpful for anybody in your circle, please hit the share button and share the love with others. Now, if you guys have been following about the last week and a half, 2 weeks, we are in our rare disease interview series with Rare Disease Day coming up this Thursday, February 28th. And I am so excited to have with me today Claire and Linda. They are actually Claire's part of the rare disease community. And Claire, I'm going to let you and your mom kind of kick us off with a little bit of the background, but I want to first welcome you guys to the show. I'm excited to have you.
Thank you, Tammy.
And I know that before the show we talked, I think, Linda, you might take it away a little bit of the early years, the background story with Claire and how rare disease has affected your family and life.
Sure. Well, I always say we're part of the club that no one ever really wants to willingly join. But rare disease is something that chose us. And Claire was born 17, almost 18 years ago. She has a birthday coming up. But she was born, thought we were having a normal, healthy baby, and found out we were having a normal, healthy baby, but with a rare disease. When she was about 2 days old, she was diagnosed with recessive polycystic kidney disease and congenital hepatic fibrosis. She was about 6 weeks premature and emergency C-section, which ironically was one of the things that ended up probably saving her life, because she was born by C-section. And most of the babies who die from ARPKD CHF die from pulmonary hypoplasia because their lungs are underdeveloped. Okay. Because the kidney function helps develop and create the amniotic fluid, which helps develop the lungs. And so many of these babies, when they're born, they're dying of respiratory failure. But by virtue of her being born by C-section, they were able to kind of prevent her from having that traumatic vaginal birth that she probably would not have survived. So that was one of the first things that was in her favor. And it took a few days to diagnose. They initially noticed right away she was also born with a unilateral cleft lip and palate. And oftentimes cleft lip and palate are another anomaly that occurs with a lot of other genetic diseases. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of a first trigger for the neonatologist to see that not only was she struggling to breathe, but she had a cleft lip and palate. And then they noticed that her abdomen was severely enlarged, and ultrasound, they saw very large, what they call echogenic kidneys. So echogenic kidneys are kidneys that basically glow on ultrasound because there's so many thousands of cysts. So those were the first triggers or clues of what was happening. And then it took a couple days to diagnose it.
Now, you had no indicators while you were pregnant?
I had no indicators at all. We had already had a healthy son. We had a 2-year-old little boy, Frankie, at home, and it was a healthy pregnancy. I remember the doctor saying that I was measuring small, but he knew that I was chasing around a 2-year-old at home and just kind of figured I was, maybe just not gaining as much weight. And what they will find now, this was, almost 18 years ago, but now they know that when moms measure low on amniotic fluid, that's an indication of a possible kidney disease. And had they done an ultrasound later in my pregnancy, rather than just the traditional, 18-week ultrasound, then they would have seen the echogenic kidneys, and I would have had probably a diagnosis prenatally. It's caught far more often now prenatally than it was 18 years ago.
Okay, and when do you think that they started to become a little bit more proactive, or that started to develop in research of, knowing that that was an indicator? Would you say that was maybe like a decade ago, or was it shortly after?
Yeah, I think right around the time that Claire was born, so she was also given a drug at birth called surfactant. And
Okay.
surfactant helps the lungs develop, it helps them open up and heal and mature. And surfactant had only been around as a treatment for newborns with pulmonary hypoplasia about 8 years before Claire was born. So prior to that, many of these babies didn't survive long enough to even receive a diagnosis. And so mothers could have been having ARPKD CHF babies and they just were not surviving and they didn't know exactly what they had. So with the development of the drug surfactant, then babies like Claire, who the drug really did help and got her through kind of the most critical neonatal period, then they were able to see what this disease is and how it manifests itself and how it progresses. And so they were able to learn more about it at that point. And now I talk to parents a lot on Facebook and other, support groups who are diagnosed prenatally because they do see the low amniotic fluid and they do see the echogenic kidneys.
So they have some of those indicators. So that was in the very beginning, and I would assume that that was kind of obviously a whirlwind, as we've talked
Yeah.
about. She was born, you didn't know it beforehand, and now there's all of
Right.
the different issues that were there. Through those, through those early years, what were some of those milestones that had to happen? I know that I had read about having some different surgeries and things like that. What were kind of those markers that happened, after you guys went home? What were those next steps?
Yeah. Well, the one thing for sure with like most rare diseases with ARPKD CHF is there is no normal progression. It's such a broad spectrum of how it manifests itself, and no two children are affected exactly the same way.
Okay.
So for Claire, things were a little bit more complicated too because she had the cleft lip and palate. So she wasn't able to eat, she wasn't able to nurse, she had difficulty breathing, swallowing, sucking, that whole normal process that's natural for babies she wasn't able to do. And so the one thing they wanted to do quickly was close the lip and do the bone graft on her palate so she was able to eat. And that was important. They were trying to avoid having to put a G-tube or anything in her, so that they wanted to give her the best chance at eating. So she had her first two cleft lip and palate surgeries at 4 months, and then again she had the bone graft at like 16 months.
Okay.
And throughout that time, she was very critically, she had failure to thrive. She had dangerously high blood pressure. Even on 3 blood pressure medications, she was still like always at the higher than what they would have liked to see levels. And with every surgery, she had an infection and she'd end up back in the NICU. She just didn't have a whole lot of strength in her to get through those, but she managed and she did. And then she had her third cleft lip and palate surgery at about 2.5. And then around 3, she really kind of started to plateau a little bit. And she had a lot of speech and physical therapy, occupational therapy, developmental therapy in home. She was in like that Birth to 3 program. And that was a godsend because they came to the house, they worked with her one-on-one. She didn't walk until she was 3 because her kidneys were so big. She looked like she was about 8 months pregnant. She just had this big belly, and it was a lot for her to try to find her balance and walk. Yeah.
And then after that, I know you've had a kidney transplant, correct?
Yeah.
When did that happen in this process, or was there other surgeries that came in between that when she was, around the age of 3 till, I don't know when that was, what year the kidney transplant was?
She had her kidney transplant at 9. She had probably a dozen surgeries before that on her cleft lip and palate. And also things that happen with this disease is the liver is also affected. So the CHF is congenital hepatic fibrosis. And the liver causes scarring and portal hypertension, which can create varices in the esophagus and the stomach, which can cause GI bleeds. So they do about every other year, she has an endoscopy, and they check all of those varices, and sometimes they have to do banding to prevent a rupture from happening or a GI bleed. So she had those done routinely every year in those early years. And some of those did require banding. She had a lot of pneumonia. She had a lot of just in like odd infections, like high fevers, and there's a risk for cholangitis with this disease too. So we were always really concerned that those sudden high infections were cholangitis. And then at 9, she had both kidneys removed. She had a bilateral nephrectomy. They both measured about 15 centimeters each. So for a 9-year-old, an average kidney is probably about 5 or 6 centimeters, if I remember right. And then had her transplant from a family friend who was her donor 2 days later on New Year's Eve, and immediately just started to thrive and grow and gain weight, and had normal kidney function again, for the first time in her life.
With the kidney surgery, there wasn't a lot of, it was a very smooth transition. There wasn't a lot of infection or anything after the kidney surgery. Was there, a lot of bumps in the road after kidney surgery, or not really?
Not right away. There wasn't anything right away, like after the transplant. I remember I felt actually worse right after the transplant. I felt worse than I had been feeling before, but as I started to heal and everything, it became better, and it became easier for me to do everyday types of things, and I was able to go back to school and everything. But in the years since I've had my transplant, there's been a lot of infections and difficulty, but that comes with having a transplant. And a transplant doesn't mean you're completely healed or anything. So I'm still living with this disease, but it's just elongated my life, and it's improved my lifestyle and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And how long, when you had the transplant, were you in the hospital for?
About 27 days.
Yeah.
Because she had the nephrectomy was a big incision to get both kidneys out of her little body, and then closed her back up, and then put her on dialysis for 2 days just to stabilize her fluid levels, and then opened her back up again and put the new kidney in. And so it was a considerable amount of pain with that large of an incision, that deep of an incision. And that was the hardest part, I think, for Claire, and for all of us, to watch her in so much pain. But, young kids are so resilient. She really did bounce back. She was home almost that whole year of 4th grade. I kept her home because she was too sick to go to school in the beginning. And then she returned to school, I think, in April. And
And I know, Linda, you were saying that Claire, that was kind of the time of revelation of really starting to learn more and understand more about all of your conditions. Claire, would you say that is when that happened? Kind of that turning point for you?
Yeah, that's definitely when I realized, like, I was different. Like, I knew that the hospital and the doctors was a constant thing, but I never really understood, like, why or exactly what it was for or anything. But after my transplant, I just became very interested in what I had, and I wanted to know, like, everything there was to know. And I wanted, like, I started asking questions, and not just my mom, and it was like something I became very interested about, and I wanted to know everything that I could learn on my own. And
and be able to teach others, and and talk to other kids, because I'm assuming that there are many, well, not many other, because it's a rare condition, but within support groups and stuff like that, a lot of times the moms need support that way, but the kids and young adults that are going through this, they need that support so greatly, to have others that are in that same pool as them talking about it. And so I know that I got introduced to you guys through Harmony for Hope, which is an organization, and I know that you're going to be a part of that happenings going on tomorrow, which we'll talk about. So, but how did you guys get connected with Harmony for Hope, and what is that all about?
Well, initially it was Lori Albers, who works at Children's Hospital of Wisconsin, and I met Lori through volunteer work that I do there. And Lori knew Carrie Hughes, who started Harmony for Hope, and introduced us. And Carrie and I had a great phone conversation, and I just felt like we were instantly meant to be together and on this mission. And I had been involved in a few other organizations pertaining to ARPKD CHF specifically over the years.
Okay.
And it's a struggle. It's a struggle because research that helps a limited number of people is cost prohibitive. And so you don't find very many organizations for rare disease that are, number one, successful, and number two, large enough to really make a huge impact. And so when I met Carrie and learned about Harmony for Hope, I thought, you know, what a phenomenal idea. This is like, you know, uniting all of the rare diseases together under one mission, and that is to, you know, to increase the understanding of rare diseases and to impact people's lives, to raise money for research, and to unite them with music, which is, you know, the music is like the language of everything, right? Everyone loves music, and so it brings people together. So Carrie wanted Claire and I to do a talk. It was in September at the Medical College of Wisconsin, and we spoke with a few other amazing rare disease parents and patients, and shared our story with medical students who may never learn about rare diseases in their journey of education and preparation for medical school. So it was just a wonderful way to bring a voice and stories to life by telling our journey and offering our advice as a mother and a daughter living with a rare disease, what we would like medical students to know when they are out there practicing and working with families like us. And so it's like the perfect mission. You know, we're so excited, excited for tomorrow night, and excited for Harmony for Hope and where it's going, and just really thrilled that our paths have crossed.
Yes, and spreading all of that awareness, and it's getting into the right hands, because, you know, these are for a lot of the students and everything that are listening, in the medical staff, you know, they're the ones that are having that patient contact all the time. And so hearing from those going through it is so important. So
Yeah.
Claire, you are one of the rare storytellers tomorrow evening.
Yeah.
Right, at Marquette. And I want to find out a little bit more from you. So when you are a rare storyteller, what are the things that you are sharing, or that you want to make sure that you get across to that audience about things that have happened to you? You know, when you think about rare disease and all the things that you have been through, you know, what do you feel is really important to pass on to others?
So I really just want them to know, like, my story and how everything I've overcome. And I also want them to know that not just me, but every kid with a rare disease, we're not that rare disease. Like, that's not what defines us. We're so much more than that. And the rare disease part is just what makes us so strong, but it's not who we are. So it's really important to me to make them understand that I'm just like everybody else. I'm just like them, and really just be the voice for kids like me, and just let them understand that we're not like a typical kid in the hospital. We want to know what's going on. If you're talking to our parents about something that's going on medically, we want to know what's happening too, because it's our life and we grew up this way, and we know all that medical jargon by the time we're like 12, 13. So we just want to know what's happening. And we love everything everybody else does. We love ice cream. We love going to the park. We love shopping. We're just normal kids, just like everybody else.
Right. And you were talking about, you know, for a lot of do you seem like with a lot of the kids that you help them to learn how to advocate and use their voice?
I feel like I have. I mean, there's not a lot of kids that I've been able to connect with specifically my rare disease. There's specifically 2 people just at Children's Hospital that are younger than me that I've had the opportunity to get to know and meet. And I think they're so young. They're still at that stage where if they're in the hospital, they're still just like as happy as can be, and they still want to like go to the playroom and everything. So they're like focusing on living their life as a little kid and playing and having fun. But for sure, once they get older, I want to make sure that they understand that their disease isn't something to be ashamed of. It's something to be proud of, and it's something to share with everyone else and tell your story and be proud of what you have.
Right. And now, where is, for what you have, do you know where research is at? Where is research going? Are there organizations? Obviously, you guys are a part tomorrow night of Harmony for Hope, and
Mhm.
telling your story and your journey to not only inspire others, but to lend education and build awareness. But through what organization, is actually researching, Clara, your condition, and
Mhm.
where is that at right now in the year 2019?
Well, ever since I was really little, we've been a part of a clinical study up in Washington, D.C. at the
The National Institute
National
of Health.
Institute of Health. So we've been doing that since I was really little, but they lost funding a couple years ago, and there was a 5-6 year gap.
Yeah, there's about a 5-year gap. We were going from the time she was 3. We were enrolled in the study, and it was the first clinical research study for ARPKD CHF in the world ever.
Oh.
So we enrolled when she was 3. We were about one of 100, and I think initially there was about 110 patients in the study. And then we went back every summer, spent a week at the NIH clinic hospital, and they would run her through all the tests and all the protocol of the study. And then they lost funding for about 4 or 5 years, and we went back last summer. And so periodically the lead of that study will publish a medical journal with updates and share that with the medical teams at children's hospitals all around the country, and with patients who are in the study. And so we get those kinds of updates and information. There are 2 organizations that I've been involved in the past. One is the ARPKD CHF Alliance, which helped develop that study at the National Institute of Health, and also has a wonderful support group for parents and a lot of great educational information. And then there's the PKD Foundation, which, if you're familiar with PKD, polycystic kidney disease, there are 2 forms. So there's the dominant form of polycystic kidney disease, which occurs as a 1 in 2 genetic carrier. And then there's the recessive form of polycystic kidney disease, which is 1 in 4. And so that's what Claire has, the recessive form. So it's more rare, and because it affects newborns and children, it really doesn't have, like most rare diseases that affect children, less than 5% of those diseases have any kind of treatment or any kind of I don't even want to call it a cure, a treatment, I guess, or a cure for those diseases. So those are 2 wonderful organizations that I've been involved in that have helped. There's an ARPKD CHF Facebook page.
Okay.
I'm on there as much as I can be, offering, advice and information and support, because a lot of children in Claire's age group, there's not a lot of them, honestly. I mean, we've met a few her age. We've met a few that are older, but many of them are babies that are now, there are some better blood pressure medications. There's some better neonatal care. So they're kind of getting through the most critical period and they're living longer. But there's a lifetime of complications with both the liver disease aspect and the kidney disease too. And then we're also involved in CODA, which is the Children's Organ Transplant Association. And they help families raise money for transplant-related expenses, both for the recipient and the donor.
Oh.
And we used CODA when Claire had her transplant, and it helped pay for our friend Jeff, who donated his kidney to her, for his expenses, all his medical expenses, travel expenses, and things like that. And then we're huge advocates for organ donation. So this all ties in together with Claire's disease, but we're very involved with Donate Life Wisconsin and donatelife.net, where you can go online and register to be an organ donor. And Claire did a huge program at her school last year where she brought a Donate Life representative to her school and talked to the students about the importance of organ donation. So there's several things we're involved in, but
yeah, and definitely we can drop those all below.
Sure.
And the information for tomorrow night. But I think that just to kind of recap even from yesterday evening so that folks know, is that there are 350 million people worldwide that are affected by rare disease. There are over 7,000 rare diseases. And, you know, that is ever growing. But, you know, I think one of the biggest things here that sometimes people don't realize is that the rare disease is so rare and it has so many complications to it, but it doesn't have the research and the funding towards it because it's not known by many. It doesn't have all of the press that so many, you know, and I don't want to say that, but it doesn't, you know, it doesn't have all of that a lot of other conditions do, where funnelings of money come in so that we can really develop, you know, better treatments, you know, do the research and everything. And that's why organizations like Harmony for Hope that are building awareness and some of the others that you listed are so important, because I think that sometimes the general public doesn't, you know, realize that. They hear something, they think, well, every organization that has a foundation, you know, gets funds and raises money, but usually it's not enough because there's not enough people who have it and it getting spread wide enough for it to the funds needed to really dig in and find out, you know, research. So it's so needed. But I am excited for you guys tomorrow evening. It's going to be great. Are you guys going to be filming that tomorrow night? Do you know? I'll have to ask Carrie.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think so. I think she filmed the last one at the Medical College of Wisconsin. So, yeah, I hope so. Or broadcasting it live, or come on over, Tammy.
I know. And I was so excited. I was talking about yesterday. And I know that people probably that are in other states are sick of us talking about the weather in the Midwest. But tomorrow there's supposed to be no snow. It's only in the morning for like
something.
Yes, but so that's so good for people wanting to come out. And tomorrow night it starts at, is it 5:30?
Starts at 5:30, and it will be live music from Tanner Chef and Peter Daniels, who you interviewed last night. And it's going to be set up as a coffee shop, from what I understand. So you can kind of just hang out, listen to music, drink some coffee. And then Claire is speaking at 6:10, and then Peter is at 6:25, and Belle is the third speaker at 6:40. And then there's going to be a question and answer session where participants can ask the speakers any questions at all, and then just some time to mingle and visit afterward. And it is, let's see, Marquette College of Health Sciences, room 227. So that's 1142 West Wisconsin Avenue in the Alumni Memorial Union.
Wonderful. And I will drop that in some of the links as well, and any of the other organizations you talked about, especially those ones with support groups in them. Linda and Claire, I think those are so important to get out there, because I know a lot of times when we talk about different conditions, people are not sure where to go. And that's a lot of the question I get. People will be like, do you know if there's a support group for that? And it's directly related to different, you know, conditions. So I think that's so important. If you're able to drop those below, that'd be great. I commend both of you for your efforts of being out there, driving awareness, advocating. And Claire, like I said, I want, if I do not get there tomorrow night, I got to tell Carrie to record it, because I want to hear.
Yes, yeah. And just want to mention too that Claire is available to give talks in the area. She's been sort of branching out and would love to talk to middle school and high school kids, especially about bullying, about acceptance, about resilience, about overcoming adversity. She's been doing a few talks here and there that have just been, we've had some great feedback from people about how much it meant to hear a young person speak about something that they've been through that was very difficult, and how they've overcome it, and how to accept each other's differences. I mean, that's just what you hear so much today, but it really can't be shared often enough, I think. And living with a rare disease, because it's so uncertain. You know, it's just, it's not like, you know, your tonsils are bad and you get them out and you go on and live your life, but a rare chronic progressive disease is lifelong, and that's a difficult thing for a lot of people, especially children at a young age, to understand and accept. And especially during the adolescent years when things are already difficult, you know, so.
Right. And when you're saying that, Linda, Claire, before we go tonight, can you kind of share with the audience, how do you keep such a positive attitude? You know, I mean, obviously you're coming on, you're going to be a rare storyteller tomorrow. You're an advocate, you drive awareness. But when you have obviously been through all of your conditions, you're dealing with them, they're still there on a daily basis, right? You wake up every morning with them. What mindset, you know, do you kind of live in, and how do you keep that focus, you know, for yourself, and, you know, being more of an inspiration and looking at your rare disease? How do you do that?
Right. That's a question I get a lot, and I never really know how to answer it, because I don't wake up and be like, today I'm going to be happy. Like it just kind of happens. Like I don't really think about it that much. But my mom and I, we always joke, we don't know how either of us are sane with everything going on. But
maybe we're not.
Maybe we're not. I don't know. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I find it easier to live life positively than to be really negative all the time, because if you just portray that negative attitude, that's just how you're going to feel 24/7, and as a result, that's how it might end up. Everything might be bad, and everything might not end up the greatest in your life. But if you're happy and positive, not only is that good for you, but others see it and they get inspired, and maybe they're having a bad day, or they see their problems as not that bad when they see everything that someone like me is going through, and we're still so happy, and we still live our life to the fullest.
And I could say I saw a real turning point in Claire. I mean, there were some very difficult years, and she still has some hard days. You know, right now we're going through the decision of colleges and careers, and the things that she would love to do, she's realizing might be really hard physically and because of her health. But I definitely saw a turning point in Claire when she started to share her story. And that's the power of sharing your story, is that you turn your ship around and you say, okay, I didn't choose this disease that I was born with, but I can choose what to do with it for good. And that's a huge, and I could have told her that, and I probably did, but she had to come to that understanding on her own. And I think by sharing her story and realizing that she's in control of where this goes from here on out, and regardless of what happens to her because of this disease, she can turn it into something amazing and beautiful and inspirational. And that can be, you know, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade lesson. But it's easy to say, it's hard to live. But every time she meets someone else with the same disease, or anyone struggling, a young person, and every time she shares her story, I think she realizes that more and more, that this is the mission she's been given, and make it, you know, rock it out. That's what she has to do. Make it your superpower. That's what you always say. I'm going to make it my superpower. Yeah. And do something great with it. Because what else do you have to do? You know.
Right. Exactly. You are amazing, Claire. You really are. You know, so many people, as your mom has spoke to, you know what I'm saying, they choose sometimes that alternate, you know, to the positive attitude, or the every time I get sick, and then they dwell on that. And by you looking at it that, you know, I've been given this, but I'm going to use it as my gift to kind of bless others with, and share your story. I think that is amazing. Simply amazing. So I thank you guys so much for sharing your story with us. I'm excited for tomorrow night. I'm excited to hear all of the feedback and everything else, and keep on driving awareness. And, you know, for everyone watching, we're going to drop all those links below. Check them out when you're thinking of places to, you know, donate to and to give to. You know, look at some of these rare disease organizations. Look at Harmony for Hope, you know, and the works that they are doing to reach out to all different, you know, conditions within that 7,000, you know, conditions that are out there. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, you guys have a wonderful Tuesday night. Thank you guys all for tuning in.
Thank you, Tammy, for giving us a way to share our voice too. You have
you're
an amazing
welcome.
organization or ministry or mission, but it's wonderful what you're doing.
Thank you so much. And, you know, it couldn't happen without everyone that has embraced it and is willing to also share their stories. But it definitely over the, you know, the last, you know, year plus has showed me that there are so many individuals out there that have so much to share and so much that they can teach others about their, you know, their journey, their struggle, and then they can get connected together, which can, you know, help all parties.
That's right.
So
raise each other up. Yeah.
That is right. That's right. Well, thank you guys. If you guys want to know any more about the On Air Advocate, for those who are watching, you can head on over to onairadvocate.com and all of our services are there. Also, if you want to become a part of our private On Air Advocate community, you can head to the top of this Facebook page, hit the blue button, and that will let you into the private group. So on that, good luck tomorrow. We're going to drop the invitation below tomorrow. So if you're in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area, it's not going to be snowing. It might be cold.
Right.
And it might be cold, but come on out to Marquette University tomorrow night at 5:30 p.m. And like I said, we'll put it all below. Thank you guys very much. Have a great evening.
All right. You too, Tammy. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.